Greetings and salutations, Scribblers. I'm Katie, founder and CEO of the Scribblers Den. Today's video is going to explore another way to add oomph to the voice in your manuscript. But before I get into that, I want to let everyone know that I have a survey that I'd really love if you took a moment to fill out. The Scribblers Den is going to be adding more courses over the summer, and I'd really like to know what topics and formats you guys are looking for. So the link is located down below in the comments, and I will be forever grateful for your feedback if you take a minute and fill that out. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So we're talking about voice in writing and making your writing really pop within that context, right? Last video, we talked about really getting to know your character and their background and how those experiences create the person that they are when the reader meets them on page one. Today, we're going to add another layer to that work. So once you know where your character came from and their life experiences, you can really start to shift to how they currently see that world. This really ties into tip number one because it's based on what their backstory is. You need to think about the way that they frame their thoughts now and how they respond to different events. So, what words and phrases are they going to use consistently? What's their manner of talking? What types of metaphors do they use? Those different kinds of things. And this also goes into, are they usually using formal speech, informal? Is it casual? Is it a lot of slang? Do they speak very eloquently? Do they refuse to use contractions? Everything like that. So there's a lot of things that go into this that are very small and subtle and nuanced, but they're really the things that make so much of a voice pop on the page. So, for example, let's say that you had a character who loved water and swimming. They might start to frame their thoughts and speech around words, metaphors, and ideas that are related to the ocean or sea life. A character on a spaceship might make a lot of mental comparisons to computer programs or AI. If you really stop to think about yourself as a character, how do you frame your thoughts? Do you use a lot of sports metaphors, cooking metaphors, animal metaphors? For me, everything either has a movie quote or song lyrics reference as soon as somebody says something to me. So I'll be having a conversation and somebody talks to me and they'll say something, and immediately in my mind, a movie quote will pop in there, or a song lyric of some sort. And sometimes I just keep this to myself. Other times I respond with like that quote or that lyric, and I really hope that they understand the reference. Usually they don't. And I'm like, okay, you don't get that. I'm moving on. So that's how I frame things as my own personal human being. To me, movies, books, things like that, everything is situational. So I just think like, oh my God, this is just like in that movie. And that's just like when this happened. Or oh my gosh, that's when this song said this line. And that's how I get through life. So everything in my life is really framed around those references. This has also been a particular struggle for me in the past with my characters. And I have to be very intentional about sitting down and thinking about how they frame things and how they see things. So in my most recent manuscript, I have one point of view character, Edria, and she sees things in one of three ways. It's either a fight, it's food, or it's a party. So I really had to go back in and think about some of her responses or the way that she would talk to people, and even just thinking in her head of using those as like her frame of reference, right? So at one point, she says something to her friend, and her friend just looks at her in shock. And in Edria's mind, she describes it as though this friend is looking at her as though she has just declared that she never wants to go to another party again. Um, and it's a really small piece of voice that you work into that manuscript, but it becomes really important to the reader and helps with that engagement because there's lots of other ways to indicate that her friend was shocked by what she had just said. But this was a very uniquely Edria way of doing it. And so that builds her voice, and it's unique to her, and it just really it helps to draw the reader in. So you're going to want to find any opportunities that you can for something like that and really work to do that. Another way that you can do this is to really sit with your character and put them through a lot of situations that they're never going to encounter in the book. And these are really basic, kind of mundane situations. And honestly, this is something I do all the time, especially when I'm bored. It's how I distract myself and keep myself like awake, right? So I will put my characters into whatever situation I'm currently in. So if that's waiting at a doctor's office, if I'm grocery shopping, doing yard work, picking out a puppy. And to be clear, I would not be bored while picking out a puppy. That would be the most exciting thing in my life. But I did put my characters into that situation, and I found out that one of them was not a dog person, and it hurt my heart, but it gave me a lot of insight into that character to realize, oh, they're not a dog person. They would never do this. Um, so the point is that once you kind of home in on what your character prioritizes, you can make their voice stand out more because it's more consistent and it tracks with the rest of their character. The decisions that we make about those little things are usually microcosms of how we approach the big stuff in our life, okay? And that same principle applies to our characters. So go ahead, try putting your characters into some mundane situations. Take them grocery shopping. How do they pick out their fruits and vegetables? A second exercise would be to have a think about what metaphors and comparisons they might make, what systems and concepts make sense to them, and how would they apply that to something like picking out fruits and vegetables. So if we go back to my character Edria, I talked about everything is like food, fights, or a party. So she might pick out the biggest, buffest fruits and veggies because they look like they might win in like a UFC vegetable league prize fight. Um, and that would be completely accurate to her because she's like, yeah, I want those like big, strong vegetables. Those are the ones I'm looking for. And she'd be happy. And that's a very, again, uniquely Edria way of looking at things. All right. So, scribblers, that is tip number 2 on pumping up the voice in your manuscript. So, get out there, write. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye, guys.